For anyone listening, this episode is visually intensive, so visit our YouTube channel, coincompass.com/YouTube to follow along. We use TradingView for all our charts, and you can sign up for a free account at coincompass.com/tradingview.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Basics podcast with your hosts, Faris and Gordon from coincompass.com, enabling you to safely buy and securely store your Bitcoins. All resources are in the show notes and description, including our disclaimer. Visit bitcoinbasicspodcast.com to subscribe and discover other free content.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Bitcoin Basics podcast with your host, me, and Faris. We're going to get into today's podcast straight away, but firstly, let's check out the block height. So the current block height is 641,281, and the current price of Bitcoin is $10,982 on July the 29th, 2020. So today we're going to have a look at Bitcoin, gold, and the markets. But Faris, what's happening in the world of macro markets at the moment?
So I've deliberately been ignoring macro markets right now. It is just too messy. In essence, the stock markets are not reflecting the economic reality. The best way to probably explain this is a lot of people are stuck at home and have opened up trading accounts. And because in the last 10 years, we've learned that if there's any bad news on the markets, it means central banks are going to bail out banks and bad news gets bought. And that's what we've seen happening, where 2 months ago, we were putting on our YouTube channel that gaps are going to get filled. So the gaps that happened in February in the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are going to get filled. The only one I think remaining is the Wilshire 4500, which is 4,500 of the world's corporations. And there's a gap there to get filled. And the VIX, I'm waiting to get filled. So I'm ignoring most markets. The only thing I am really keeping a closer eye on now is gold. I've been very bullish gold. In my last 2 YouTube macro markets videos, I said I felt more confident about gold than I did about Bitcoin. And we'll get into that in a minute. Cool. Any questions, Gordon, before I share my screen?
No, let's get into it. Interesting price action in the last couple of days, so I'll be interested in your take.
Yeah, so the first chart that we're looking at is the blue line is gold and the red line is Bitcoin. And we did see a correlation between the two in 2019. You can see they kind of followed suit a bit there. But then in early 2020, it did break down a little bit. Gold was going up and Bitcoin wasn't. So you can see gold broke away. The blue line went higher than the red line there in percentage terms. Now, my theory at the time was basically that people were trading Bitcoin as a risk asset, meaning that it was being traded as with the same mindset as the S&P 500, meaning that things are going well, things are going to bounce. So you're trading it with the anticipation it's going to go up and that all is good in the world. Gold is a safe haven asset, meaning you don't trust sovereign governments. Things are not going well. So it's seen as an insurance policy. Our opinion at Coin Compass has always been that Bitcoin is a safe haven asset. It is equivalent. It is a new gold. There are many aspects that Bitcoin share with gold. We've discussed this on many episodes. We've even written about it several times. The price was not reflecting that. But this week, and look, this week, it's only halfway through. It's yet to be finished. But gold, I will move on to now. And this is a weekly chart. And what I did in my last video is I said gold could potentially be forming what's called a long-term cup and handle pattern. Now, cup and handle pattern is actually a very reliable technical indicator, and it's a sign of a very strong bull market to come. And gold recently just hit an all-time high, and that's dating back 10 years. So I'm very bullish for gold at the moment. There was a really good podcast I listened to, came out last week on Macro Voices, where I'm talking to Grant Williams, and he says the only reason he'd be bearish for gold is if central banks around the world started working together with a common fiscal policy. And this is something that we just haven't seen and we probably won't see. But it's good to know that he's questioning the bearishness for gold. He's been bullish for a very long time. But yeah, look, I'll zoom into a daily chart. Now, I did actually get into a trade in gold, and I've just closed it, and I'm on actually a short-term short position for gold. I'm shorting it with the expectation that it should revisit around this mark here, just above 1,800, 1,800, because that's just such a big run. And at the end of the day, you need to remember that markets, whatever they are people, buyers and sellers. And if we put in one of our indicators that we follow from Tone Vays, we'll see that we are on a daily 9 here, and that normally signals it's an exhaustion level in the market, and it's time for a 4-period pullback. So on this day, if this plays out, you're looking at a 4-period pullback. So that's gold at the moment, and $2,000. Yep.
Just go ahead, a quick interruption. Sorry. Yeah, that indicator is actually proprietary. So that's a shout out to Tone Vays. We actually went on his course a couple of years ago. And that indicator is proprietary, unfortunately. But just a reminder to everyone, by the way, you can sign up for TradingView for free, coincompass.com/TradingView, and you can get all these indicators and charts and follow along. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, you might want to head across to our YouTube channel and check out coincompass.com/YouTube for what Faris is talking about, because this indicator is actually quite useful. Sorry, Faris. Continue.
It is. Thank you. No, not at all. I'm glad you brought that up. And yeah, we have spoken with Tone, and he is happy for us to share this. But if you're looking at trading any markets, this is a very reliable indicator, and we highly recommend you do the course. Otherwise, you have no idea what we're talking about. So yeah, I'm just simply because of the exuberance of this short-term running gold, I'm expecting a pullback. The other reason is it's just come within this $2,000 price limit, and that's a big round number. You would have had some sellers lined up to sell at around that round number. So as I mentioned, I was more optimistic about the short-term price for gold than I was for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has surprised me these last couple of days. So this is a weekly chart, and just like I said, halfway through this week, we've broken through this downward trend line. This was a trend line that we were paying careful attention to, and for months now, we've been saying Bitcoin needed to break and close above 10,500. That's been our resistance level, 10,500, because it has not closed above that level since February of this year. So it's been, it's tipped above it. So we've seen some wicks where it's gone above that level, but has not closed. So this week looks very promising. I have been bearish on the price of Bitcoin, but if this price holds this week, I'm bullish. I'll be very bullish. So if we close above this trend line, so it doesn't matter if we poke above it, if we close above it, and that's above $10,000, I am bullish for Bitcoin. Another pattern here, and look, this is one I will probably get a lot of criticism for. It is not a perfect one, is we are potentially looking at an inverse head and shoulders here. So you've got the head there, and we've got potentially a shoulder, left shoulder there. And we've got a right shoulder there, which would give us a neckline just around here. So again, that's at $10,000. So you've got two patterns in play here. So if $10,000 holds, is a key round number, psychological number. It is above that downward trend line, and you're looking at this neckline here as well. So at $10,000, $10,200 in that range, if that holds, that will convince me that we are in a new bull market for Bitcoin.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself.
And just to interrupt again, sorry with an annoying comment, because there may be some people who aren't traders and this kind of want a general outlook on the price. They hear all these terms like neckline and head and shoulders and cup and handle and symmetrical triangles and all this kind of stuff. Like, what the hell are you talking about? So through the magic of editing, I will overlay some of the most common, and link to them, some of the most common chart patterns. And they've been around forever. This is like not something new or magical that people have come up with. These patterns actually exist in pretty much all charts.
Yep.
And the other thing Faris is also talking about is this is on a weekly graph. So just because sometimes the price goes up above a breakout point doesn't necessarily mean that it will finish above that point. So for example, a lot of times Bitcoin actually does what's called a fake out, and the price goes up, everyone buys in or whatever, and then the price goes back down. So I think what you're saying is, Faris, you need to see a whole week close. In other words, the next candle needs to be above that blue line you've drawn there.
Exactly. So right now, what we want to avoid, if you believe the price of Bitcoin is going to go up, this candle here, see how it's a full body candle. It's all white. It needs to stay like that. If the price starts to go down and drops below the blue line and closes below the blue line, that'll be a black candle that looks exactly like this one over here. A high wick basically means that the price went to that point, but there were a lot of sellers loading up to sell at that price. So what this means is if you got a high wick, so think of it like a candle and the wick on top of the candle, if it's high, it just means there are so many people waiting at that price line to sell and hammer the price down. So, and you can see here, this one here, this candle here, right there at the top of that one, that is, see here how that is such a long wick. And that was the top of the market, which we have gotten nowhere near. So that candle there was the beginning of a new downtrend. So if we see something similar like that here at these key numbers, I would say we're revisiting new lows at 4,000. That would be my guess, because we've come so many times to hitting that. If we don't stay above this trend line, stay above $10,000, and we go lower, then people would have given up on Bitcoin. And this is what I mentioned earlier. To me, Bitcoin is a long-term store of value, but it is not being treated that way. I think a lot of people who are getting into Bitcoin now are trading it as a speculative market. And what I'll do is I just want to add the NASDAQ on top of here. And
just before you get to that, Faris, because you made a really interesting point about that wick that hit the line above. The reason why I think perhaps this is different, of course, time will tell, and Bitcoin could go back down to 9,000 tomorrow, is that actually on the tone phase indicator, again, we'll link to his indicator. That's actually a weekly green 2 candle. So if that closes, above that point next week, then that's it already is a super bullish indicator.
Yeah, so that's the thing as well, is that if we do close this week and that is above 10,000, preferably above 10,200, I'm turning bullish, because that's above the neckline of that dubious Head and Shoulders, let's put it that way. It's above that trend line and it's above $10,000. So that will absolutely change my opinion that we are now bullish on Bitcoin. The other thing I wanted to mention is, so I'm bringing up here, comparing the NASDAQ to the price of Bitcoin. So this is the red line that I've just introduced. And the issue that we've had, this is what I was mentioning before, that we have had, and so you can see Bitcoin has actually been following the price of the NASDAQ. That's a concern to me, because the NASDAQ, I believe, is a market that is irrationally exuberant, meaning that it does not reflect the global economy. It does not reflect sound fundamentals. So when I say people are trading Bitcoin as a risk-on asset, that's what they've been doing. So if the NASDAQ keeps going up and Bitcoin follows, and if eventually we get what should be a decent correction in the NASDAQ, then Bitcoin may follow suit. So that's my concern. Ideally, for me to be, what I would like to see is the NASDAQ to correct, because quite frankly, it just needs to. And I think that might happen when we close that gap in the VIX. If Bitcoin keeps following the NASDAQ, then I would potentially see a prolonged sideways consolidation or bear market in Bitcoin. But this is what I think there's still a huge misunderstanding. People are trading Bitcoin without understanding what it really is.
Yeah, let's be honest. Everyone gets into 99% of people get into Bitcoin because it's a speculative investment. They don't really see the use cases in it. But that's why at the moment it's fascinating, the macro environment, because you kind of have a decoupling of the stock market and reality. How can you have record highs in the stock market, Nasdaq, S&P, when you've got record numbers of unemployment? To me, that makes no sense whatsoever. And that's when sometimes the fundamental analysis is different to the technical analysis. Like technically, you see Bitcoin at the beginning of a bull run, but as you said, if Bitcoin and the Nasdaq or S&P stock market is correlated, then that technical analysis goes away when the fundamental analysis is, well, that's when there's a correction in the stock market.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, and we've been talking about this for quite some time. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But I think people are just stuck at home and they're thinking, what do I do? I need to make some money. And they just saw this run that Bitcoin had in 2017. They're thinking, well, that can potentially happen again. So they're trading Bitcoin. So, and we haven't had that much volatility in Bitcoin in 18 months now. It hasn't really been that volatile. So that's my concern for Bitcoin, is that if there's a lot of money in Bitcoin where they're speculating as a short-term trade, that's going to hurt it. But if the money getting in now is hedge funds or high net worth individuals saying, yep, Bitcoin is the goal because it is correlated to the price of gold now as well, then that's what we'll see. So if there's an uncoupling between Bitcoin and gold, that's a concern. If there's an uncoupling between Bitcoin and NASDAQ, then I'm encouraged.
So can I summarize just what you said and what I think you mean? Bitcoin will never fall below $10,000. We're at the start of a bull run, and the next price target is $100,000.
That's not at all what I'm saying. I believe Bitcoin can reach $100,000 based on long-term fundamentals, but it doesn't matter what I believe. It's what the market's telling me.
Excellent, Faris. I think that's about it. I've asked too many newbie questions, and I have more. But if you're really not a trader, the best thing you can do is really buy and hold. Now, we're not going to tell you when to buy, and in fact, don't put in 100% of your savings into Bitcoin. Please don't do that. Even if you wanted to put in a significant amount, don't put it in all at once, because you may time the market absolutely perfectly wrong. You might buy in at exactly the highest point. So we talk a lot about dollar cost averaging, and there are several third-party businesses that can take money out of your salary or transfer money from your bank account. So let's say if you had $10,000 and you wanted to invest in Bitcoin, don't put $10,000 in one shot straight away today. Just $100 here, $100 here, or $500, whatever it is, so that you're averaging out the losses and the profits. So that's what I would suggest. Buy and hold Bitcoin. We're definitely not telling you when to buy. Bitcoin could completely crash tomorrow. It could go up. We don't know. No one knows. Buy and hold. And that's pretty much the only thing I can say for us.
Okay. No, I couldn't agree more. So anyone who's been listening to us for a while now know that right now, with sovereign debt the way it's going, with interest rates going lower, there's one of the reasons gold's going up is interest rates are going lower, and that's reflected in bond prices around the world. It is a time to own gold, and it is a time to own Bitcoin. But my only concern is that you need to educate yourself on what Bitcoin is. It's one thing to just go ahead and buy it, but know what you own.
And how would people find out how to know what they own?
Subscribe to Bitcoin Basics podcast, learn about Bitcoin, and share it with your friends.
Yeah, thanks everyone. BitcoinBasicsPodcast.com if you want to subscribe. For those listening to the podcast, these kind of episodes are visually intensive. So go to our YouTube channel, coincompass.com/YouTube. And all we ask is that you share it with your friends.
Thank you, Gordon. That was a real treat.
Thanks, Faris. Until next time. Thanks for watching or listening. Please visit coincompass.com/free to register to our socials and discover other free content. Subscribing, liking, and following helps this content remain ad-free. Until next time.